On April 9, 1940, Norway was invaded by Nazi Germany. The plan to take over Norway was called Weserübung. The Germans landed on most of Norway's major ports such as Oslo, Kristiansand, Bergen, Trondheim, and Narvik, and would then take over the whole country. The Allies countered with landings in the north, such as Harstad, Namsos, and Adalesnes, to drive the Germans out of Norway. The Luftwaffe was too powerful and soon forced the Allies to retreat. The only Allies left were ones who drove the Germans out of Narvik, and soon they had to retreat too. Hitler wanted Norway so that he could use the Blitzkrieg on Great Britain more efficiently and so that his Luftwaffe could reach Great Britain easier.
On May 10th of 1940, right after the invasion of Denmark and Norway, Germany, the big star on the right, invades France, the star on the left. The French had their wall of defense already set up along the borders of Germany and Alsace-Lorraine, marked by blinking red. The Germans knew that the defensive wall was going to be difficult to break down, and because France did not think that the Germans could pass through the Ardennes forest, marked by the small blinking star in between Belgium and France, they chose to take that path. Germany passed around the defense line and used its effective blitzkrieg method to successfully invade and capture France. The invasion of France leads into the Battle of Dunkirk. After passing through the Ardennes forest, the French troops from the border move to help fight the Germans, but the Germans are too strong. The Germans push the Allied troops to the coast of France in Dunkirk. Unexpectedly, Hitler tells his army to hold their fire for a brief moment, and the Allied troops escape through the water and move to Great Britain. This was taken as an amazing victory for Great Britain that day.
The Battle of London, which began with strong Nazi forces attacking the capital at night, led to a huge fire at the coast. The British knew the Germans were challenging them. A huge attack such as this one was bound to do industrial damage, for the majority of the Nazi bombs struck civilians and private property. Many houses were demolished. Street scenes like this one demonstrate the tragic story. The failure of Germany to achieve its objectives of destroying Britain's air defenses or forcing Britain to negotiate an armistice is considered its first major defeat and a crucial turning point in the Second World War. Beginning on the 22nd of June 1941, over 4 million soldiers of the Axis powers invaded the USSR along a 2,900-kilometer front. This was the largest invasion in history of warfare, and this led to the Battle of Kursk in 1943. The last obstacle that lay in Germany's way was Stalingrad. Hitler and his commanders were confident that the city would be theirs in a few days. For 200 days, the brutal battle raged on until the Red Army forced the surrender of Nazi forces in the city of Stalingrad. This was the first time in the history of the Soviets that they had inflicted a decisive defeat on their enemy.
On 6th of June 1944, the long-awaited liberation of Europe by the Allies, codenamed Operation Overlord, began with landings on the Normandy coast. Encouraged by elaborate deception plans, the Germans expected the attack in the Calais region, and so the Normandy beaches were more likely defended. The first landings were made by parachute and troops to protect the flanks of the bridgehead. 2 U.S. airborne divisions in the west and 1 British airborne division in the east. From 6:30 a.m., 5 assault divisions came ashore from the 4,000 landing craft over a 50-mile front. Unprecedented supporting fire was provided by some 600 escorting warships and more than 10,000 Allied aircraft. Only on Omaha, where the Americans encountered steep cliffs and a cracked German coastal division where there were serious losses and delay. With some of their senior commanders away, the Germans were slow to respond. The only significant encounter attack by the 21st Panzer Division between British and Canadian forces was repelled. Although objectives were not reached in full, over 156,000 British, Canadian, and Dominican troops were landed on the first day. Paris was liberated on August 23, 1944. In order to reclaim Europe from the Germans, Great Britain and the United States invaded Europe. The Nazis had already taken over France, so for France to help attack would be no use. Great Britain and the US fought hard and were finally able to reclaim France back on August 23, 1944. Europe was completely reclaimed on May 8, 1945, known as Victory in Europe.
VE Day took place on May 8, 1945. VE stands for Victory in Europe. It was the public holiday which marks the date when the World War II Allies officially accepted the unconditional surrender of the armed forces of Nazi Germany. This ended the war in Europe. The act of military surrender was signed on May 7th in Reims, France, and on May 8th, 1945 in Berlin, Germany. Due to the fact that Adolf Hitler committed suicide on April 30th, 1945, during the Battle of Berlin, the surrender of Germany was authorized by his successor, President of Germany Karl Dönitz. After the surrender took place, massive celebrations erupted throughout the entire Western world. The Battle of the Bulge, also known as the Ardennes Offense, was a huge German offense launched in the densely forested Ardennes in Belgium, France, and Luxembourg. This was on the Western Front and took place from December 16, 1944 until January 25, 1945. The battle consisted of several smaller operations whose goal were to split the British and American Allied line in half, capturing Antwerp, and then proceed to encircle and destroy 4 Allied armies, which would force the Western Allies to negotiate a peace treaty in favor of Germany. Germany had tried to, for the last time, try and attack the Allies. Had heard vague rumors about the German attack. They were caught completely by surprise when they indeed did attack. Due to the weakly defended section of the Allied line, the Germans were able to advance a bit. However, the Allies counterattacked and pushed Germany all the way back to its original location. The offense was a complete failure. With about 610,000 men committed and about 90,000 casualties, including 20,000 killed, the Battle of the Bulge is considered the largest and bloodiest battle fought by the United States in World War II.
When looking back at Hitler's strategies and plans made in advance for the war, he had many, but there were times when Hitler wasn't thinking and simply acted as the situations and opportunities arose. For example, in the invasion of Poland, he thought that Great Britain wouldn't declare war on Germany, so he invaded Poland. He underestimated Great Britain, who then declared war on Germany, just like they said they would. Hitler believed that they wouldn't because of previous actions, but Great Britain had enough, because Hitler had gone too far. He believed he could do anything he wanted, which was one of his weaknesses. By the end of the war, Hitler was extremely weak. None of his strategies were working. Because it was the end of the war, he had no troops. He was just sending the troops he had left wherever he knew that there was Russians. Instead of him sitting down and actually coming up with strategies, he demanded commands to be fulfilled and completed right then and there, on the spot, depending on the situations that arose. One of his weaknesses was that he underestimated the power that the Russians had. The Russians had a large and strong army, which Hitler underestimated. This eventually led him to his downfall and losing the war. The Russians were also allies with Great Britain and the US, so if the Russians ever needed anything, the Allies were there to back them up. Hitler also believed that Germany was a powerhouse at the time, so he thought that he never sometimes really needed to put much effort into his work or plans or strategies because he would win either way, which brings us back to Hitler's underestimation of the other countries. His plans could have been planned out, but not completely, because since he thought that he was a powerhouse, he could beat anyone, which was yet another one of his weaknesses. When the Battle of the Bulge was planned, Hitler thought that it was Germany's last great push, when in reality, it was just an act of desperation. It was not planned out thoroughly or thoughtfully. It was just a fight to push the Allies back, which in the end, the Allies won either way. Another aspect that showed Hitler's weakness and aging was the shaking of his hands. He held it behind his back so that many wouldn't notice, but most knew about it. It shows that the war and everything he had done at the end was taking a great toll on him. One can see how nervous and stressed out he was, making him look older and age quicker. Hitler had his good times and his bad times. but even he knew that eventually all good things come to an end.
There are many views today of discussing whether Hitler's plan was pre-planned or if he just took advantage of opportunities that arose as the time came. I find that Hitler's strategy for war was thoroughly pre-planned, and he did not just perform as things came. He had a mindset, a plan, and he knew what he wanted to do. The Nazi-Soviet pact is an example of Hitler thinking beforehand. He knew the Germans were strong and would be annoying to have as an enemy. So, using the Nazi-Soviet pact, he could keep them away from him for a while until he attacked the communists. It also made it easier to take over Poland with the help of the Soviets. Also, in Mein Kampf, Hitler clearly stated that he wanted to eliminate the Jews from the face of the world. The invasion of Denmark and Norway was also pre-planned because Hitler knew that if he had these countries, he could prevent a blockade like in World War I and attack Great Britain using blitzkrieg. Many also say because of appeasement, Hitler just took advantage of the opportunities he got due to this. This is wrong. He had everything pre-planned except the defeat of Germany. Appeasement just helped him with his strategy to take over Europe and the rest of the world. An example of this is also the invasion of Holland. If you could see in the videos, you clearly see that these Germans knew what they were doing and where they had to be in attack, and it ended in no one getting almost hurt. Thus, Hitler pre-planned all of his World War II and did not just take opportunities when they arose.
Is it blurry?
It's actually.
Are you recording?
Yeah, but now it's not.
Yo, I'm hungry so much right now. Holy
You're hungry
shit.
so much?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Stalin, what do you think about these? Fine.
I'm hungry like since you were born. Yo, came out of the ordered like a Big Mac.